Today on the bench we have this Toshiba VP100. The story behind this is that I bought this as a parts player off of John from the Facebook group. The story behind this is after doing the pulley mod that you have to do on all these players, there was no output whatsoever, no video, no sound, and double dashers on the LEDs. So this was set aside, and I thought, let's see if I can fix it and make it work and make a video about me fixing it, and hopefully that'll serve as a educational guide for people who end up with players that need more than just the mechanical fixings. So I did fix this player, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the fault back in and show you the symptoms, show you how I troubleshoot it. Shooted it? Is that the actual past says? I don't know. Show how I show my reasoning, show how I fixed it, and hopefully that'll be of help to people, as I said, who run into these players that end up having circuitry problems. So let's dive in. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to take off the whole cabinet here. You notice I have the gloves on. The reason I have the gloves on is when I first went into this, there was, if you worked on these before, there's that the belts can turn to the black goo, which is the worst, and I didn't realize that they were that the old belts did that. So I got that goo stuff on my hands, and that stuff doesn't come off, not without a fight. So and I didn't clean it because I don't want to keep going into this thing. This will probably be the last time that I'll be going into this thing for a long while, until I need to do some lubrications on it. Whenever that is. So that's why I have the gloves on, so that when I'm done moving it and done getting the black goo stuff all over, I can finally take those off and just be left with clean hands. Before I actually open anything, before I undo any screws, I want to remove the stylus from here, the stylus cartridge. On these players, there's a little latch. It's different than the FG players where you slide it out. This one, you pop it out, and then you can slide it out. And maybe I should... Come on. The LED light on this bench here is so powerful. So there's this little latch here. There we go. There's a stylus cartridge. Just like your FG players, that just simply pull up. You just lift it up to pull it out. Put that in a safe spot. There we go. Don't force anything. You can't get the stylus cartridges anymore unless you get a parts player and hope for the best, because John Stevens can no longer rebuild them, and I believe he also does not have any more unused old stock, whatever you want to call it. So I put the stylus cartridge in there. It'll be safe there. It'll be safe there. No debris. I didn't put on any debris. I hope I didn't. All right. I'm going to actually pop this thing open. To pop this, so if you want to take the whole cabinet off, bottom cover, top cover, front cover, you have to start with the bottom cover on this. So let's see if I remember which screws you take off. Let me focus on one. So there's the gold screw and the black screw. I should have, before recording, I should have reviewed which one you take off. In fact, I have the service manual just over there. I can do that right now. Okay guys, it is the gold screws that you need to undo. So having an electric screwdriver is so wonderful, although this one needs the battery charge. Look at that. Of course, as soon as I need to record a video, it has to get this last screw in. Yeah, wow, that's really unfortunate that it's decided to crap out now. Well, I'm trying to make a repair video. Let's see, do I have any other screws? The bonus of having the electric screwdriver is that, well, it saves you on muscle power if you're going to be undoing a lot of those at once. So that's the bottom of the player. There's the main processing board there, and that one is just the power supply. But that'll be important. We will actually be taking a look at that. I was going to grab it like it was still working. I just have the, it uses the same, can you see that? It uses the same charger as actually my phone, so I don't really have to worry about that. So now we can remove the top cover. Another 4 screws here. Oh no, wait, actually there is, almost forgot, there is 2 on the back that I need to remove. And you'll see I also will need to like move, well, rather work the AC cord out of the case. It is one of those cases. Or you have to guide the AC plug. It's going to be these 2 screws on the top here that actually look like they're holding the back panel in place. Alright, that's the bottom. Not bottom. That's the top cover removed, my bad. So, to get the front panel out, I had the whole thing a little backwards there, my bad. So to get the front panel out, there's 3 screws on top, there's 3 screws on the bottom here. So, let's see if I can. I must say, I did myself a favor last time by not tightening, not over tightening these. So now they're actually coming off rather easier than I thought. It also really helps if you get a magnetized screw tip. Make things so much easier trying to get things apart. Especially if you drop something. And we'll like that, like right now. Of course, as soon as I say that, this one's, jeez. Of course, I compliment myself not tightening anything, and that one's giving me a bit of trouble. Don't force anything because you do not want to strip any screws. That's always the goal. This area does have that cursed black glue, so I'm going to try to not touch that. So you do not want. Ooh, yeah, I think I already got. Probably can't see that, but I think I already got kind of hit with it. Oh yeah, there's, geez, wow, yeah, there's some of that on the side. Okay, this one. I won't, I'm not going to force you to come out, but it kind of needs you to come out. There, that wasn't so bad, was it? But we're not done quite yet. Does this snap on? I can't recall. Okay, it doesn't just fall. Don't get too excited, because there's actually, hopefully you can see that. See what's going on. There is that ground screw there. So we will need to take that out in order to fully remove the front panel. And yep, another easy one to get out. Okay, well, I said you were detached, but I kind of need you actually out of the socket. Yeah, gee, look at that. Ew, yuck. And I should say, in doing that, that does, if you saw that silver on and off button, taking the front panel off, does remove that button. So now it's on, off. So that's how that works. Okay, so now everything's off, but before we go, we can actually do stuff. As is, we can't, do any testing on the main board. isn't that unfortunate? How, well, the point of servicing something is to, you know, put it in the operation, in this case play mode, and actually see the signals going on as, you know, it's, you know, having its issue, just to see where the problem is. But with no play board out in the open, you can't do that. And I can't do something dangerous, put it on its side, as long as you hold it, make sure it doesn't go anywhere, it's really squared away. Let's go over Mr. Player. Okay, this is the player on its side. There are 2 screws here. There might have been a third one, but if there was, it's not, it didn't come with this player, I can tell you that. So there are 2 screws here, and there are little side latches on the side. This is not in the service manual. I swear I looked over that service manual so many times. Actually getting it into the service position is not in there. I don't know why. It's just not. So consider this an exclusive here, and actually being able to fix the VP100 players. There we go. So it's just those 2 screws. What I'm going to do, slide this to the left. I'm also going to try and this is, I will also say, a dangerous balancing act. But somehow the player is not capsizing, which is great. Unfortunately, I can't really find an angle to show you, so you have to take my word for it. But when you go inside this player, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so that latch lifts up. With any luck, this one should too.
It may seem like I'm leaving in too much of the disassembly process that I need to show, but I want to do this because I want to show to you guys that carefully taking apart these machines is just as important as actually servicing them. If you rush anything or force anything, then you are risking breaking the machine, whether it be breaking the circuit board or just mechanical piece, whatever. You must take these machines apart as carefully, as safely as you can, so that you do not do further damage to the machine. So just want to throw that out there.
Oh, hold on. Okay, I got it. I kind of got it. I at least got it through the little, hole. Question, how do you do it with this one? Okay. Okay, that came out. This is coming out. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Fortunately, if you worked on the FG player, I need to set this down. I can't. Oh baby, okay. It's gonna come down. So rest. Of course, you want to swing this around. Try not to get any junk on the bottom of the board. And boom. Yup. Okay, I don't know if I got all that on camera, but once you get these little hooks out of the little, more or less latches after you slid the board to the left after taking the screws off, once you can safely get the latches out, you can then take the board out. You have to flip it over, well, not flip it, rotate it, you know, to the right so that it can clear the bottom of the player. And that way, you can set the board on the side, and finally, scope signals, take DC measurements, what have you, on the board here as the player's running. Alright, so that's how you get this into service mode. Let's dive back in. Tie in until it's flat. Alright, so I'm going to plug this into my variac. It's already at the right output voltage. Good sign. Nothing's smoking, so I'm not shorting anything. There's always a bonus. But anyway, turn the player on. You can hopefully see the green light. Yeah, I think you can. So, get my monitor on here. Appropriately, I'm playing this Toshiba player on a Toshiba monitor. So I already have the cables hooked up in the back. This one, it's not like the SGT 250 where you have to, where the door automatically opens and closes. This one, the door stays closed until you push caddy in. Then it closes back up. And also, this one doesn't go automatically play like the SGT 250. This is a standby light, at which point you have to press play for it to work. So it's going to spin up. And nothing. There is a zip coming out of this player here. Why, yes, we do have a problem on this. Trying to see if I can... No, my hands aren't that stable. But what's a good... I'm trying to show you that the stylus is on the disc, but it's a really like narrow spot. So come on, hand. So when I press pause, boulder dash. I don't think you're gonna be able to see it, but it isn't. If this were in person, I could at least guide you guys on the like at least point like, oh, look here, you know, look. But that is the important thing to confirm. Always make sure that the stylus is actually on the disc during a problem like this first. At which point, then you have to isolate that to either a stylus problem or more rarely a stylus lifter problem. But I can also confirm another thing, important thing is this is a, come on, there we go. This is the stylus in here is a known good one. I fixed this player and I've used the stylus, so I know it is good, but John confirmed for me beforehand that it is indeed a good stylus. So that is also an important thing to confirm. The stylus is good because kind of self-explanatory why that would be an important thing to confirm. So I do have a physical copy of the service manual, or at least definitely not the original, but a paper copy of the service manual. This is the page, you see that, hopefully, symptom, no picture or no sound, which is exactly what we're experiencing. These CED service manuals will generally have troubleshooting flowcharts to help you find this trouble spot. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to follow the troubleshooting chart, as is. Once I get to the point where there is an irregularity, and explore that further and get the issue solved, I will then explain the logic behind the other steps. Should your player not have the same symptom as mine, or the same missing waveform as mine. Alright, so let's get to it. This repair is going to require that you have an oscilloscope. I'm using an analog one because benefit of that, there's no delay with nothing gets missing potentially from doing potentially on a digital oscilloscope, because on those you have to do analog to digital. So this analog scope more or less just shows things as is. On your, don't worry, I'm going to bring this closer. Actually, I can probably leave it here because, yeah, that's good. Yep. Okay. Anyway, so move on, this probe will go. So here is your oscilloscope probe. This is actually what you're going to latch onto to a point of interest on the board. But this is the ground clip. Now, unlike your digital multimeter, where the black probe is, can be connected to anything, because, well, if you're measuring voltages, you're just, measuring the red lead parallel to the black lead. This one is connected to ground, so you must connect this to a ground point on your board. If not, I connect this to a positive 15 volt rail, well, I am essentially shorting positive 15 volts to ground. That's going to be disastrous for both your scope and your player, or just product, depending if you're not exactly working on a player. So this ground clip here must be connected to a ground point on the board at all times. I'm going to use this loose ground clip because I know that's connected to ground. Alright, so now the probe tip is grounded. Held a good spot to rest at. And you are going to need to see my board. I mean my scope too, so we are going to have to do that. Yeah. I'm really pushing the boundaries of this the camera aspect ratio. I know. So I'm currently spinning up the disc and the player. Of course, it's not going to go into play mode, but it is going to try. So let's see. So we have double dashes on the board. That means that either we're getting no DAXI off the disc or DAXI is heavily distorted. You can always put your scope on the appropriate test point. I'm blanking on where exactly the DAXI test point is on the system control here, but that is something you can do to make sure that there's see if there's anything there. I know in this case there's going to be no DAXI like anything when I put the probe at the appropriate spot. So, but anyway, I mentioned the DAXI because, as I said in the part 1, if you were able to sit down through that, the DAXI is contained in the chroma. So the fact that there's no DAXI is telling me that, and the fact that there's also no picture, it's telling me that something's blocking the chroma part from coming out. So that would place the fault, nowhere, that would place the fault furthest in the stage as far as the comb filter part. But the fact there's no picture whatsoever, there's not even like a black and white picture, because it was just a black and white picture and no double dash and no double dashes, which I'm sure can happen. That would tell me that something's blocking, the chroma's just not coming out of the comb filter section whatsoever. Like not even to the point where it goes through the low pass filters, it's not even extracting the vertical detail out in DAXI. But no picture, no chroma, as we know from the DAXI, is telling me that the fault is a bit further back. So, following the troubleshooting flowchart here, you can't really see all these hand gestures I'm doing. So the first thing we have to do is it wants us to hook the probe up to test point 101, which is here. This is going to be a little bit of a bouncing act. Trying to, I can always just go over to my probe screen. So test point 101 is here. This confirms there is an output from the stylus arm. No output from the stylus arm. Yeah, there's my finger. No output from the stylus arm would mean a bad arm, and we have to look there to where we could possibly perform component level repair on the arm preamp. Difficult to do, but it can be done. And if the resonator were bad, then you need to replace the arm as a whole. There's no way to do that to repair the resonator. So we hook the probe up, test point 101. What are we going to find? Yep. Don't know about you. Looks like there's something there to me. Alright, so I'm currently at 0.1 volts. So let's see, 1, 2, 1, So that is at least 0.4 volts peak to peak. When you see the P-P, that's peak to peak, so that means from the measure of the height of like the amplitude here. So generally these arm outputs should be at about 0.4 volts peak to peak, because that will be enough to drive the signal processing circuitry to follow. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a little bit of runoff there, but that's fine. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. We have it at 0.1 volts per division, so that is hence 0.4 volts peak to peak. So that waveform checks out. If I can get that. So that waveform checks out. The arm is good. And my door's going to make creaky noises because there's a little bit of a breeze out there. So next in the flow chart, waveform of TP203 is abnormal. 203, why wouldn't it have us test 201 first? Well, I'll explain it when I can find that damn test point. The heck is it again? Oh, okay, it's here, right next, or like right. Well, depending on how you're looking at it. From here, it's like a little north of the IC here, but I guess if you were to orient it so that the chip was facing, it would be a little south. Anyway, the test point I need to look at is right here. Alright, we have a waveform at that test point. So that checks out. Test point 203, if I'm not mistaken, that is I'm not sure if I showed this, but the flow chart also shows what the waveform should look like, so you have a reference. So that checks out. That test point is good. I believe that is the output for the NLAC, because, you know, the NLAC does that weird thing where it is also basically is also the video demodulator also like feeds into the NLAC again and all that. So that's just telling us if I'm getting my if I'm getting everything straight. That's just telling us that the NLAC section is okay. The output of the NLAC is okay. All right. So next we have to check is TP201. Is that normal? So TP201, that's going to be the output of the video demodulator section, or pin 11 of the video demodulator IC. What's that going to look like? Well, I will be damned. What does that look like to you? I'll tell you what that looks like to me. It looks like a flat line there. It looks like there's nothing there at all. In fact, TP201, it's not even supposed to be you know, a basic waveform at all. It's going to be that like little composite video feed there in the middle. That's what's supposed to be at TP201, but, well, there's nothing there. We have now found where our video is cutting out. So we found our trouble section here. It's in the video demodulator section. How are we going to isolate the component that's giving us this headache? Well, for each of these says no, it'll tell you what to look for. So I have to, I'm sorry, there it is. Okay, so for if there's no waveform or the waveform of TP201 is just otherwise abnormal, we have to. It tells us, okay, check IC203, which is the video demodulator IC, and check this transistor there, which is a shoot, I'm blanking on the name, but it's phase something or other. But let me get the little schematic that the video demodulator, that this service manual has on the video demodulator, so that we can get a good look at the chip and that little transistor there. Okay, so maybe in post-production I'll opt to just include that JPEG image like I did in the previous video, but this is the basic schematic, well, more like block diagram of the video demodulator IC. I point this out because we should confirm that the it's, because where's the test point? This here, you can also see the shadow, so that's going to be annoying. This here was test point 201, pin 11 of the video demodulator IC. So there's no waveform coming out of here, but it would be a bit, there, so I don't run the stylus out. It would be a bit too quick to judge that the IC is shot. It's appropriate to confirm that it's getting the right signals and it's getting the right power, if that's applicable. Is there a power? I don't see a power chip. But in any event, we'll look at the IC first, since that'll more generally be your cause of the problems. Confirm it's getting the good input. If it's getting good input and there's no output, it's a safe bet that the IC is bad. But again, we have the scope. We're going to take a look at those pins, those input pins. Oh, look at that. TP203. So that's after the bandpass filter, which is after the NLAC. And that's the input for pin 3 of the video demodulator IC. So we know it's getting a good input already, but I also want to take a look at pin 9 here, see if there's a signal. If there's no signal, well, then it would be a safe bet to say that the problem is here, at which point it would be a safe bet to say the problem would be the transistor. If there is a signal there, I'm going to say the chip's getting good input, no output, chip's probably bad. I'll tell you what, this camera is definitely showing its age, because the battery is starting to go out on me. So I'm gonna have to I might want to speed this up because I don't want to take a pause to charge it. But I just want to show you this chip here. On the board, you'll see it'll say this is pin 1, that's pin 8, this is pin 9, and that's pin 16. So that's how you'll be able to identify your pins on your ICs here for this. And there's also a little indent here. Now that basically shows you what's the front, and even on this chip here, the little 1 is like kind of bumped up, so you know what pin 1 is, so you can align it with the board properly, so you don't accidentally blow your chip like. So let me get the player back into play mode. Okay, guys. I did go a little AWOL there because putting it at my probe at pin 9, I'm not really getting much of anything. Even though I swear when I worked on this player before, there was still something there, but Yeah, something on pin 7. Pin 7 was... Okay, so pin 7 was is the final output through that low pass filter. Then it'll go through that. Then it'll go through the video level adjust trim pod, which is to that transistor, and it's supposed to be output from pin 9. But there's a little something on the emitter, a little noise on the emitter there. As a reason, there should be some updates. But yeah, does look like there's. I could be remembering it wrong. Yeah, it looks like there's a tiniest bit of like noise running on the line there as I do that, but tell you what, I'm still going to replace that IC and show you what happens. So what I do to get this IC out is I have a little tiny flathead screwdriver. I just ever so slightly twist it, like a bottle cap or something, and it pulls out like that. There's the chip. It's a Toshiba chip, it seems like. Oh. Okay. Again, camera looks like it's about to die, so and I definitely tell the camera by that it's getting up there in age. So there's a new chip. Normally you would have to desolder everything to get like the chip out, or get a parts chip from a parts player, but Toshiba, gracious enough, has, as you noticed, oh, stupid me, that, yeah, gracious enough already has the thing socketed. So this is, come on. So this is the little indent there that tells us this is going to face front, and this one also has the pin 1 marked. So I'm going to find that, and again, don't force anything. Yep, that pin wasn't straight. Good thing I didn't force it. That would have been really, really stupid. There we go. I should mention I did disconnect power from this player. This player is not plugged into the AC outlet. That is what you want to do when you're replacing stuff, especially when you're soldering. Always disconnect your player from, unplug your player. Always, when you're doing replacement like this. So that looks about as aligned as it's going to get. Pin 1, yep. Alright. Chips installed. This was from a parts JK board, by the by. I thought I had another one, but I couldn't find it, so I had to desolder this one when I first fixed it. Apply power to the variac, or rather to the output from the variac. Get this going. Stand by, side 2. now with that new chip, what's going to happen? You see what I see, guys? I see time indicator. Wait, focus. Furthermore, I see picture and sound. Yes, sir. So, issue on this was just a... God. Let me kick that in. So, issue on this was that IC. So now I'm getting nice picture, nice sound. Now that I have this going, I want to check that Pin 9. This is a ground point on the board.
We escort the queen and her attendants to the dance after the game. Great!
Okay, that is what it looks like. Just the tiniest. So I guess Pin 9, there is just the tiniest bit of noise on there, but it makes sense. It's going to go through an inverting amplifier anyway, so that's going to be much bigger. And speaking of which, Pin 11 IE test point 201. What's that going to look like? I definitely don't have this in the best place, but that's just how the cards fell and setting up my workbench. Test point 201. Yep, now we have something.
It's a tradition, Charlie Brown. You escort members to the center of the ballroom. And before the first dance begins, you have to give the queen a kiss.
That is what the modular IC is supposed to do. And that was final fault. Well, the one fault in this player. So, this is pretty much a closed case. There was good input going into that IC. I just couldn't remember exactly what it looked like. I remember because I was confused myself as to what it looked like. So so that's why I was a bit confused there. But so good input going to that chip, just no output. So chip was bad. You may have noticed I didn't use a digital. So you may notice I didn't use a multimeter on this. Well, that was putting my probe to DC coupling. There was like DC on the chips at that point. Still, there was just those signals. So if you had the digital multimeter, more than like, even though like surprisingly the board, the service manual doesn't seem to come with like DC measurements like the RCA one does, but you would have probably been led astray to thinking, okay, the chip's good, but you needed the scope to actually see the signal from the chip to realize, oh, okay, maybe the chip's bad. So if you really, really want to be thorough about everything, after replacing something major like an IC, if you had the appropriate test disk, you could go in and double check all the values, all that, make sure nothing like drifted, too far astray from, changing the chips. But as is, the player plays very, very well. So even if my service disc was playable, I don't feel that that it's entirely necessary. So just want to throw that out there. But
Here comes Peppermint Patty.
since the player is
We're gonna have to
playing
go
well,
for a field goal.
I don't feel that's necessary.
And nobody can miss such an easy kick. Not even
Over
you
here,
know who.
this big chip here is that video computer I see I was talking about.
Scores 21 to 20.
Pin
We need
2
3 points to go ahead. You
is
can do it,
final.
Charlie Brown. You can be the hero of the game.
Is
No more, Charlie
the
Brown.
final
Remember that
composite
little
video.
girl
We
was
can't really
watching.
see, unfortunately, but now there is something there. Before the chip was replaced, there was nothing at that pin, so further evidence that there really was nothing coming out of this player with that bad IC. This here is the comb filter. The purpose of the box is to, I'm pretty much done testing things. The purpose of this box is actually to shield it from shielded it's not to shield the inside from other electronics, it's to protect other electronics from the signals off here. That's why, that's the purpose of the shield here, I was told by John Stevens. The player will still operate well without that shield there. It's just that that's for the purpose of other players, other pieces of machinery. This is such a nice loading mechanism. I just love it. It's caddy sliding like butter. Man, oh man. So, now I feel it's appropriate to get this player back together again. Depending on my camera battery, I may or may not do that. Should have disconnected the power roll. It's not the major, it's not like nothing's gonna like explode if you have the player off is still connected and you remove the stylus. No, it's just you don't want to replace anything on the board while the player's plugged. That's just being concerned. But I've done that before, where the AC power was still connected and I was removing the stylus. So you're not gonna, nothing's bad gonna happen. So no need to worry about that. So before my camera battery dies, I feel like it would be worth it just to show at least getting the board back in the player. So, of course, now I disconnected the AC cord from any power, so we'll be good to go. So let's see. It didn't really rotate it that much. It was there, so at rest it should be here. Of course. Don't worry, guys, I just realized that it's nuts. Can't really make out much. Here's the board. Of course, the leads are gonna stick out and prick my gloves. Okay, you can at least kind of see better. So, orientation is important, but I also want to make sure it's oriented so where the wires will, stay put at rest. So, from my angle, this is a good spot. So reverse procedure. Now get the little latches into the notches. Like it was, I swear, of course now once I give it the right push, it's now wants to all come out. God. So, okay, good. I'm not gonna get any of that grease on the board. Okay, that's bonus. Oh, there's a wire there, dude. Get it in your place. Oh, for the win. Yeah. Okay, well. Slide now to, well, from here to the left, but for me it's gonna be right towards you. You're getting this. Again, it's getting this together safely is as important as finding the issue. Okay. Okay, that's gonna be, that won't be too much of a bend, so I'm gonna call it there. Look. Yeah, a little bit of gooiness on me. Good thing Ryan at the in one of those workshop videos gave me the idea to wear gloves to do this. Because, man, is it ever worth it? Of course, it would be worth it to actually try and clean the goo out, but, oh well. That's probably fine. The word's a little more bendy than I'd like it to be, but it's not going to snap. As you guys see, by the way, you can see it. Alright. I feel like that's as good as it's going to get. That's why I was trying on these. You know, you also have to worry about guiding the wires in right as well, so that I'll do, because the wires could get in the way, you know, and you have to worry about that too. Alright, so now the board's tucked in there. It won't break. I don't plan on dropping it anytime soon, so it looks like there was like a wasp or so like outside my door. And good thing I saw that like little like screen bug shield, because that would not have been fun if he decided to come in while I'm trying to get the player back together. Not going to want to go in all the way. Guide it. just so I just let my camera battery recharge for a bit while I got the rest of the player reassembled. Of course, it's the same thing as taking it apart, but in reverse. Just remember, you do need to work the AC port back in when you're putting the top cover on. So, appropriate one final check. Power on. You can put a disc in with power off, by the way. It's just that you need the power on in order to actually play the disc. But you can still insert a disc with power off, assuming there's no disc in the player. Well, could be more appropriate to play side one. So, plate went in here. This lights up green, by the way. And when you have, might as well show it. Of course. Still works with the case assembled, which is what you would hope, as that's the point of, player to work without, having taken the service mode. So this lights up when play is enabled. This lights red when you have it paused. And the 2 forward button lights up red when you have that function enabled. And it will, as you would think, it does go, I believe it is double speed. I didn't time it myself, and of course, since it's not perfect, since there's only since there are 4 frames on per rotation on a CED, not like a CAV laser disc, which is perfect 1 frame for each rotation, it's not going to look the best. But as you probably saw there. But anyway, press play again to deactivate that, because if you press pause, I notice if you press pause and well, is that true? Oh, I mean, if you press like any of the scan buttons, these sets of 2, that'll, when you stop pressing it, it'll still be in that mode. That's what I'm trying to say. So be sure to press play to get back into play mode. This is the reset button. That'll turn this fan off. Does it make it faster? There. Ugh. Didn't realize I was getting in my way. There's your 2 lights. Now you can see the flashing red one. I hope you can. You can see the green one indicates side 1, and for side 2 the LED is red. I feel like that's an interesting choice. So let me just work out of here. I mean, the disc is just easy to replace, but again, I don't want to screw it up still, especially since I have all 4 in volumes. So power off and fully disconnect power, unplug from the AC, and that is a fixed Toshiba VP100 player. I'll see you in a bit for extra commentary. Thanks for watching if you decide to stop here. So as I promised, I'll just go over the last remaining blocks for this symptom. So had the waveform at pin 11 of the IC been there, or test point 201, then the next step, according to this, is the test point 302, which is the luminance output from the comb filter. So making sure that we have signal coming out of the comb filter and all that. If there was none, then as it says, check your IC. Make sure all the inputs to your IC are good. Make sure if there is a power port, if there is a power pin where the chip gets power, which is the case with the comb filter IC, make sure that's working. Make sure there is voltage there, that there's no, not that much noise running on that, etc. So, and of course, if all the inputs seem good and the output, and more importantly, the output of the chip seem good, then double check that transistor, make sure it's not open, shorted, what have you. So that's that. If waveform there is good, oh, sorry, that's going to be the waveform you're looking for at that test point 302. Should have specified that before. Make sure, else make sure the waveform from that video converter IC is good, test point 409, which, if I'm not mistaken, is in fact the composite out. I mean, that gets sent out that I checked pin 2. I mean, there's, I mean, that just looks like composite video to me. I don't know about you. But actually, anyway, as I was saying, in the case of if you end up here after make sure everything was good, again, it's going to tell you check. If you don't see that composite video waveform at that test point, again, make sure if you can actually see, that'd be great if you can actually see. Yeah. Again, make sure IC's it's getting all the inputs. It's getting the power if that's applicable. I can't recall on the video converter IC if there's a power pin. If all the inputs check, and if there are certain so here's the 3 transistors. So I would say if there is like a signal coming out of pin 2 here, and I guess the test point would have to be over here. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I should have checked when I was at the board, but of course I didn't. But because normally you would find no signal at pin 2 if that were the case. But anyway, if there is a signal, if there is a composite video signal here, and then basically just at that point just scoping to make sure to see like where you're going to lose your signal at, and at which point if you found a transistor that's a bit sus, you could then take it out, test it for opens, test it for more than likely opens, but if there is a short, you can test, you see that too. I refer you to any like little instructional video on transistors to check what's open, to identify an open transistor and to identify a short transistor. I should add that. So yeah, if there is a signal on pin 2 and there's no signal on that test point, which should be further out now that I think about it, test those transistors. And then at the end, if all that's good, then you're going to have a problem with your RF modulator, at which point you have to, that is a little thing in and of itself, but I was doing it through the composite outs on the player, and furthermore, since there was no DAXI, since the player obviously wasn't getting any DAXI, that can only mean that something, the problem can only be as far as the comb filter. Would be a bit shocking if the video converter somehow did something and it just so happened the DAXI didn't work. But anyway, I feel like I've rambled on about this repair long enough, So I hope this was informative, and I hope this helps you guys fight your own electronic issues with these players. If you're on the Facebook group, I mean, and you have a circuitry issue, I mean, I always recommend emailing John Stevens, but if you can't get a hold of him for whatever reason, I'm always happy to help point in the right direction in that regard. So that's all I have for you guys for this video. It was a long one. I didn't even start editing it yet, and I can tell it's going to be a doozy, especially with all my little especially with all my little hiccups in speech and just the amount of times I stopped recording. But so I'm going to end it here. You guys take care, keep on trucking, and keep on watching. Later.